Okay, so it's a good time to start. Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining us today in today's Generation Restoration Dialogue, where we focus on learning, teaching, and the role of teachers in land restoration. This edition is very special. It comes just days before World Teachers' Day. It's a moment to reflect on the power of educators and mentors who go beyond classrooms, shaping not just what young people know, but how they lead. On behalf of UNCCD G20 GLI, I thank you for being with us. And whether you're an educator, student, or a policymaker, your presence reflects a shared belief that, education is at the heart of climate action and land restoration. Over the next hour, we will hear stories and strategies that show how teachers and mentors are planting the seeds of a greener, more resilient future. And together, we explore a central question on how we can make every classroom, mentoring space, and community a starting point for restoration leadership. And today, our conversation is guided by three wonderful speakers, each bringing a unique perspective on education and restoration. Our first speaker is going to be Dr. Karen Sudmeyer. We welcome Dr. Karen Sudmeyer, an environmental education and outreach specialist with more than 2 decades of experience in ecosystem restoration and climate risk reduction. She created one of the most widely used online courses on nature-based solution and has mentored students around the world. Today, she'll share her perspectives on how education and mentorship empower restoration leaders. And we have two more speakers, Alejandra Ramos and Dr. Nazmul Huk. Uh, um, we will introduce each speaker as we proceed. Dr. Karen, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Arti, and thank you for inviting me to this wonderful series that you have. So I would like to talk a little bit about some of the educational materials that we have developed at the G20 Global Land Initiative. And again, welcome to all participants, and a little bit in advance, happy World Teachers Day. So I'd like to talk a little bit about some of the two of the courses that we have already developed that I think are pretty exciting and are a good way to, I think, kick off this webinar. They're in a series called Trigger Change for Land Restoration. And these are two resource kits that I find pretty exciting that I would like to share with you all. Now, these are kits for university professors, but even if you're a student or if you're a training professional, you can download these and use the materials. So take advantage of that QR code being there, and I'll come back to that QR code. You can go to there and check out our materials, which you can download freely from our website. So there are two courses I want to cover, and then I have a third exciting new project that I'd like to announce. So let's go to the next slide, please. So who are we? We're the Global Land Initiative, the G20 Global Land Initiative, which was created in 2020 by the government of Saudi Arabia, who was the president of that year's G20, because it shifts every year. And they recognize that it's super important need for bold, coordinated, and collective initiatives on land protection and restoration. So we were born out of that effort. Next click one more time. And our ambition is to prevent, halt, and reverse land degradation by 50% by 2040. Now, how are we going to do that? Next click. We feel that education is a call to action. And our philosophy is to embed educational materials into existing curricula, especially on agriculture and urban and other types of curricula where land restoration has not been as present as it should be. Click next. So we feel that land really is opportunity, especially for young people around the world who may feel a bit anxious about climate change and want to do something positive. So we have a lot of positive narratives of how land can be opportunity for you as young people, but also for educators, and for educators to teach more about land as opportunity. Next slide, please. So we have developed two educational kits for universities and training institutions. The first one that we developed a year ago with global partners is on Trigger Change, Innovative Sustainable Agriculture Solutions for Land Restoration. And this course is intended mainly for professors to include these materials if they are teaching anything related to agriculture. Then the second one that we just launched this year with we have two speakers later today, and one of the speakers has been involved in both courses, Dr. Nazmul Hook, and we'll hear from Alejandra, who has been involved in the innovations in sustainable urban land restoration. And this course is intended more for teachers teaching urban planning or urban geography, landscape architecture, and related types of topics. Here again, you can scan and get to the webpage that talks about both. Yeah, go ahead. Next slide. So the first course, I'll just go through a bit quickly. Innovative Sustainable Agriculture Solutions for Land Restoration. Go ahead and click forward. So we have go ahead and click one more time, launched last year, over 1,200 recipients, of which around 600 are universities and training institutions. We've trained nearly 400 educators and professionals. We had lots of applications for our trainings last year. We have also a huge amount of people on our master list. And click one more time. We translated the course into Spanish and Arabic, French, and probably Russian are underway. Next, please. Oh, in 123 countries around the world. So the next course is Trigger Change, Innovations in Sustainable Urban Solutions for Land Restoration. I believe that Alejandra will talk about this course a bit more in detail as well. We now actually are probably over 200 course recipients, of which a large majority are universities and training institutions. And we've had around 400 people in our various launch events. So actually altogether, yeah, over 500 people have joined our events. We have a huge master list, and we feel this is pretty exciting. We've had a lot of really good feedback, and translation into Spanish underway, and we're hoping to translate this course into French. Next slide, please. So this is basically the kind of kit that you would receive if you download any of our courses. So you receive a course manual. It's over 130 pages. It's as a PDF. We have developed over 48 hours of course material. So this is intended to be an elective course, either at the bachelor's or master's level. So there's 48 hours of PowerPoints. It's a lot of materials, a lot of thought and work has gone into these PowerPoints. And we have 10 case studies from around the world in each of these courses. Then last year we organized 3 or 4 day training of instructors, mainly in online, but a few in person. And we have a community of practice as well. And I will share the link in the chat where you can join our community practice in LinkedIn. Next slide, please. So what's unique about these materials? Well, you can tailor these materials to your needs, kind of a la carte, basically. They're freely available, and we really encourage experiential learning. And the other thing is that we really do promote startups and how to create your own business model. That's quite unusual if you're teaching agriculture, if you're teaching anything related to land restoration. We want our students, our graduates, to feel like they have the tools to go off and do whatever they want in life, and even create a startup. Why not? Next slide. Now, I'd like to announce a new massive open online course called Innovation in Land Restoration, which we'll be launching next year. You can grab the QR code there as well and sign up to be on our mailing list. If the other courses were mainly intended for universities, this course is intended for anybody, and especially youth around the world who are looking for something positive to do when they graduate, or are already graduating and are looking at contributing to their local communities through land restoration, which we really think is a huge opportunity for growth. And we're seeing a restoration economy that is growing more and more. Can you please go to the next slide? I think this is the final slide. Again, here's where you can download the MOOC. You can grab that QR code on the left and for trigger change materials on the right. So Artie, I think this was a good way to start our webinar, I hope with giving hope and giving some very tangible materials that our participants can download and feel like they are a part of. And please also do sign up for our newsletter where you can keep receiving information on some upcoming exciting grants and opportunities for young people to be part of land restoration. So with that, I'd like to thank you. And back to you, Artie.
Uh, Thank you, Karen. It was pretty informative, and you have given us a lot of information and materials for us to go through. I will drop the link for the newsletters. And to all of our dear participants, if you have any questions or any information that you would like to know more, please drop your questions in the Q&A chat box. We will have a Q&A session at the end of the session. So please do drop your questions. And we will move on to our next speaker. Our next speaker is Dr. Nazmul Hook, a researcher and lecturer at Cologne University of Applied Sciences. His work bridges climate policy, ecosystem services, and resilient development with a stronger focus on coastal livelihoods. He has led major projects across international organizations and academia, and today he will share his insights on how education and research can drive restoration leadership. Dr. Nazmul, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Arti. It's been a pleasure to be here. As you are introduced, my name is Nazmul Haq. I am originally from Bangladesh, but I have been living in Germany for quite a long year, I would say, and currently being engaged at the University of Applied Science in Cologne, Germany. At the beginning of my session, I would offer my deep gratefulness to all of my teachers. I don't think I have ever formally expressed my gratitude to them. So in our own traditional language, we call them guru. So my respect to all the gurus who have taught me so far, and still I am learning from all of you, and respect to all of you. So again, this has been a quite an interesting experience so far, particularly in the last 2 years, for developing these 2 courses, which have been greatly supported by GLI, Global Land Initiative. And we, University of Applied Science in Cologne, we are particularly happy to be part of. So I would like to particularly focus on 3 aspects of this course development, which may have some which could give you some insights. What are the particularities or particular importance of these courses, particularly for the teachers, regardless of their academic connections. So first of all, the 2 courses we have developed, one is agricultural land restoration, and the second one is urban land restoration. Both of them are developed in a very close partnership with global partners. And when we talk about the global partners, it's not about just European partners, but it also partners from all over Asian countries, from South Asia, Southeast Asia, Middle East and Eastern African region, Sub-Saharan region, European partners, Latin American partners. So it means that the program or the courses have been immensely benefited from the inputs coming from all different parts of the world. What does it particularly mean? It particularly means that the course included the reflections and diversity and the learnings of land restoration from all over the world, and the practices which has been reflected through many different case studies. So it is never been intended as a one-directional source of knowledge. Rather, it's a 2-directional sources of knowledge coming from all different directions and providing all the educators and the learners a way of opportunity how restoration being practiced and being implemented and being conceptualized by many different partners and many different stakeholders. If you go to the course materials, as the link shared by Dr. Karen, you will see all the partners' names, and if you are interested, you can further communicate with any of the universities or the professors who have been involved in this course development. The second point is the introduction of different tools and technologies for land restoration. The both courses it follows a particular sequence. So, for example, introduction of land registration and the philosophy and theory of changes of land registration, and then what are the tools and technologies could be helpful to restore our land, regardless of types of land or the ecosystems. So it could be agriculture, it could be urban, it could be forest, it could be mining land, whatever it is. But in every case, we need some tools and technologies in our pocket so that we can be more resourceful when tackling the degradation problem and restore our land. And in our both courses, we spent around 10 hours out of 50 hours for introducing different tools and technologies could be useful. For example, we brought different technologies and like geographic information system and remote sensing and its application in land restoration. We brought citizen science and sensor technologies and IoT, how those could be useful and in land restoration and tackling degradation. At the same time, we introduced how the immense potentialities of data currently available globally. It could be open source data, it could be closed source data, it could be citizen science, and all these things, how data could be applied and implemented in land degradation philosophies and practices. And not only that, we also brought some governance aspects of how those technologies could be used in responsibly, so that our privacies and every ethical aspects of data could be ensured. And number 3, which is capacitating educators, capacitating trainers. We developed a course, but that's not the all the history. So we also provided a very targeted training of trainers. So Karen already showed the number of educators have been trained by us. So we provided a very targeted training of trainers course. It has been done for the agricultural course. I think it's more than 200, and we are again doing it for the urban course over the next 3 or 4 months, starting from December. And we are again expecting between 200 to 300 educators will be getting hands-on training how the urban course or previously the agricultural course should be delivered in front of the classroom. And we also demonstrated that, we also practiced that particular courses in different seminars, different conferences. And that lesson we also transferred to the educators, what they should do and what they should not do, or what we should do. And that is how we are bringing a complete package of for the educators, from the materials to how the material should be delivered to the classroom session. This is in a nutshell our course and how our courses should be outreached to the global audiences, particularly to the educators and learners. I'm available for any further discussion and questions. And again, it's been a pleasure to be here and speaking in front of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Nazmul. You have given us quite a visual on what we can expect from the materials. Since Dr. Nazmul has covered what can be expected from the land restoration, I think now we can move on to our final speaker, Alejandra. Alejandra Ramos is a third speaker, and she's an architect and environmental scientist whose work connects sustainable cities, systems thinking, and action-oriented learning from urban design and public spaces in Mexico to research on how local actors shape greener cities. Her work blends design and education to inspire sustainability at the community level. So she will share about how local initiatives can transform schools and cities into living labs for restoration. Alejandra, please do.
Thank you very much, Artie. And thank you very much for inviting me. It was really an excellent experience being part of developing this urban course. Of course, it was part of a large team effort. As you mentioned, I'm an architect. I graduated from the University of Applied Sciences in Cologne in Germany. And I'm currently working in the United Nations University in the Human Environment and Security Institute based in Bonn. So I think I'm going to start addressing already some questions that I see popped up in the question and answers section. And I just want to call for this thing that Karen mentioned, that the course is open access and free. So with the links and the QR codes she provided, you can download the course and register, provide an email, and you can download both courses. But now I'm gonna present a little bit about what we did during this Sustainable Urban Land Restoration course. And I'm gonna start with our conceptual framework. Next slide, please. And it's this. We built our own framework because we realized that there is a lot of talk on land restoration, but specifically to talk about it in cities, it's a little bit complex. And why? Because a lot of things happen in cities. The cities are very, very complex. So we decided to build on currently very known framework, that is the Donut framework, developed by Kate Rothward. And this framework was developed more for economy and development. But this aligns very well with what's happening with urban development. And what this framework is basically saying is that we have an ecological ceiling, and we have to pay attention to these planetary boundaries that we're crossing. We are affecting the Earth systems largely. And the other part of the framework, that is the inside part of the donut that you can see in this like light purple, is the social foundation. So we need to be aware of these limits, but also we need to address and cover our basic social needs. Some of them not so basic, but we have to pay attention of that this resource overuse is meaningful. I mean, we cannot have this over-consumism and over-exploitation of resources, and at the same time, not cover our social needs. So what we're saying with this is that we have two systems, the social system and the ecological systems, and both are present in urban environments. And sustainable urban land restoration should be in a safe space in between where we can thrive. So we have to pay attention of these relationships between social systems and ecological systems and how we're managing and how we're using them. And also, land system change is one of the most important planetary boundaries. And unfortunately, I think it was yesterday or last week, Rockstrom announced that we have crossed another planetary boundary, being ocean acidification. So that's very alarming. Land system change has already been crossed. So we need to take action. Next one, please. And well, aligning to urban development, there are already efforts to use this framework, to use the donut, to have this balance, to rethink growth in cities, especially in urban development, but also to have design principles. And when we think about this ecological ceiling, we could be thinking of having a regenerative principle, meaning that we need to start building with nature again, instead of building against nature, or we have to build with it. And also, when we're talking about the social foundation, we need to have in mind a social justice perspective. We could have or take in mind a redistributive principle for this. So following these two design principles, because design is very important for urban planning and urban design and for buildings, we are guiding the course. Next one, please. Could you, yeah. And also we needed to think like, what is exactly what we are addressing with this urban land restoration? And we answered this with defining what is urban land degradation. And we found ourselves with the definition that is depicted with this diagram. And it basically means that we have no longer ecosystem services in this degraded land. And we need to recover those ecosystem services that are basically the benefits that we are getting from ecosystems. So next one, please. So what we have here is the same curve you observed in the previous graph, that is this green curve of ecosystem services going down, and how 4 main types of actions of sustainable urban land restoration would pull up that curve. The ideal one is that we would avoid to degrade urban land. The second one is that we reduce actions that degrade urban land. The third one is when we have a scenario where we already degraded that land and we need to reverse and repair those damages. And the renew scenario is when we have, unfortunately, a loss of ecosystem services, a very severe loss, and we need to start from scratch. Next one, please. And what we are also saying is that, as I mentioned before, land restoration is a bigger topic. So we are currently carrying out efforts worldwide in different kinds of ecosystems to restore land, because land is not only the soil, land encompasses fresh water, the life that survives on the land or that lives in the land. So we need to restore ecological services, biodiversity, but also the productivity that comes from land. And in cities, there are other things happening, urban systems, infrastructure, buildings. We have land that has severely or greatly transformed. So that's why we have these specific actions. And I repeat, as I said before, that sustainably restoring land in cities would mean that we recover these ecosystem services, but always paying attention to the social dimension, to the social needs we have according to different contexts. And to achieve this, we can do it through nature-based solutions, because these actions are the ones that are contribute to our sustainable restoration actions. Next one, please. And well, cities are complex and also don't have like rigid limits that define them. Urban areas are a continuum of urbanization. And in the course, I invite you to download the materials. We divide these actions according to the different urban areas we can have, because, for example, in the urban core areas, we can have highly modified surfaces, impermeable surfaces. So which type of actions could we take there? Because we also have or could have conflicts between urban uses. And we mentioned also the importance of aligning efforts in urban planning with other international frameworks, but also having multi-level governance perspective and cross-sectoral, multidisciplinary and cross-sectoral contributions and partnerships. Next one, please. I think that was it, right? Yes, thank you. So I tried to summarize like the first modules that we have in our course. It's a lot of information, but what we're trying to do is to incentivize this lens for programs that are related to architecture, to urban planning, to urban landscape, or to landscapes. Because sometimes we have these perspectives divided, the ecological and the social one, and the built-up environment one. And we try to do here is how to merge efforts, because nature-based solutions can be an umbrella approach, but we're trying to find commonalities and entry points for sustainable urban land restoration. And well, I just invite you to download the materials and check up by yourselves. Thank you.
Thank you, Alejandra. It was really great to know what goes behind, preparing course materials, the frameworks, and all the thought process behind creating a coursework. And I believe our audience and participants also quite enjoyed your sharing the behind the scenes of what goes behind. And now that we have heard from our speakers, let's bring them together for a short panel discussion. I will start with a few questions that I have, then we will open the floor to the participants. I'm from a policy background, so my question is a little bit more towards the policy side of this. So I want to know how can the national education system better support climate and environmental literacy? Like, how do you see integrating? I think this question is open for all three of you. Better integration of the coursework into, the education policies. Can someone share your thoughts on this?
Well, I'll give that an attempt. That's a very interesting question. It's true that we have other colleagues in our team that are working more on education for primary and secondary school. This is more at the national level, at the university level. But I think it's up to us to continue giving information and working with policymakers. We do, as you know, have a global academic, or the GCAP. Let's see, what does that stand for again? It's basically an Academy of Parliamentarians that come to Bonn every year. A few are selected every year to come to Bonn. And we talk about land restoration. We talk about the importance of land restoration in education as well. And so we do work with these parliamentarians who we hope will then be ambassadors for their countries to be able to go back and incorporate more land restoration into their national guidelines, into education at the national level. So I think it's also up to all of us to keep up the information on land restoration. We don't have a particular program where we work with national ministries of education, but we're at all of these conferences and we do meet with a lot of policymakers. I'm currently actually in Denver at the Society for Ecological Restoration Conference, and we try to have those conversations with people that come. And as well as next week, I will be at the IUCN World Conference, Conservation Conference, Congress as well. So keeping the information going, and I don't know, Nazmul or Alejandra, do you have any ideas on that?
Well, I have a very brief reflection to that. In fact, I saw one of the questions raised by, I forget the name, Katrina. She asked a very important questions, particularly how the kids could be integrated about ecological restoration. Perhaps, Karen, you can come back to that point later on that. But regarding one of the major target groups that we often, I should not say ignore, but somehow they are not integrated into our environmental movement, and they are the higher education policymakers, particularly in the developing countries. The country I came from, Bangladesh or Pakistan, where I also have some experiences, and what I have seen, for example, the University Grant Commission, who was the supreme body of preparing curriculum and all these things, they are not very much integrated into this environmental movement that we are currently being quite involved. However, one of the things that now many organizations are currently supporting and also doing funding is how higher education bodies like University Grant Commission or the Curriculum Development Commission, they could be more integrated into environmental learning, or let's say in participating different environmental conferences, so that they also know, or they're also making their reflection very clear in what way our overall education direction should be going. It's not saying that we should be just bringing them and feeding them all the information. Rather, we also need to understand what are the bottlenecks that keeping them away from integrating all the things that we are developing. Definitely, they have their own points, and we need to hear them, and we need to open up spaces also for them in as much as possible.
Can I add to that, RC? And also thank you, Katarina, for your question. Our MOOC will actually have a whole section for teachers. And so we will have a whole section for primary and secondary teachers on how to incorporate land restoration into their teachings. So this is an extremely important group. And I think you're right, Nazmul. I think also in times of economic struggle, maybe environmental education is one of the first things to be dropped, actually. And so we need to be vigilant, and that's why we're stepping up the efforts through the MOOC that will be launched next year to really help support teachers and how to include in land restoration efforts. And I know that another one of our colleagues is working very hard on this as well, together with the Nature Conservancy. So this is definitely in our minds. Yeah, thank you. Back to you, RT, and I'm happy to answer some of the other questions in the chat whenever you feel that's appropriate. Back to you.
Yes, thank you so much for the detailed answer. And I think we can start answering the questions in the chat. Our lovely participants, please do drop your questions, anything, and we will answer. And one of the questions I want to focus on is some Haley, as that, is there another course on forestry aspect, or only it's restricted to agriculture? Are we developing any new courseworks on this?
Yes, thank you for the question. The agriculture course is, I would say, in between forestry and agriculture because it includes quite a lot on agroforestry. And the forestry course will probably include quite a lot on agroforestry as well. So for now, our next project is really to develop the MOOC, and the MOOC will have a whole section on forestry. So please do sign up. The QR code and the link were shared in the chat. Do sign up to be more informed on upcoming events related to the MOOC. And at some point, we will have a separate course on forestry, but that will come once we have finished the MOOC. So to stay in touch through our newsletter or signing up for the MOOC, and you will find that yes, the answer is yes, it's coming.
So then please do keep an eye out, everyone. There are definitely progresses happening. And Carlo has asked, do you suggest the local planners include some of your policies to enhance their comprehensive land use plan? Have you ever prepared one of your own?
Let's see that question. Can you repeat that one?
Yes, of course. So this is from Carlo.
Hello, yeah.
Yeah. And they are asking if you suggest the local planners to include your policies to enhance their comprehensive land use plan, and if you have ever prepared a land use plan per se using the materials, and what are your takeaways?
Okay, I can start answering that question and maybe hand over to Alejandra if she has some ideas. So definitely in our urban land restoration course, we are certainly promoting comprehensive land use plans that incorporate how to enhance ecosystem services and across scales in urban areas. And so we look at a continuum of scales from the upper watershed of an urban area to the inner core, and looking at the connectivity between outer areas of a watershed that the city depends on. So we definitely do promote and talk about comprehensive land use planning in our course. Now, we are educators, not town planners. So I have not prepared one for a town, but I have worked with strategic environmental assessments, which is a way of doing a comprehensive land use plan. And I have helped prepare several strategic environmental assessments. So that has been an interesting conversation that I've had with town planners, also on how to incorporate disaster risk reduction into such plans. So yes, and it can be a really good way of managing trade-offs and conflicts between different land uses, and something that we do promote very strongly. I don't know, Nazmul or Alejandra, do you have any examples or anything you want to suggest for Carlo? Over to you.
Yes, thank you, Karen. Well, I just want to say that we do not create policies, because I think Carlo is mentioning that if we are suggesting to include our policies, but we do not create policies. And as you mentioned, Karen, this course is developed as be preparing guidelines, frameworks, entry points, concepts that could be useful to include in such urban planning instruments. Now, specifically, which planning instruments, that would largely depend on the context, the country, how the levels are organized in different cities, metropolitan areas. For this, in the first submodules, we are including a nice snapshot of the interrelations of these kinds of levels and scales, because we have to consider a lot of scales: jurisdictional, spatial, geographical, ecological. And what we are saying here is that it's very important to keep in mind these scales and the overlapping between kinds of instruments. For example, I have contributed to the development of master plans and development plans in Mexico for some regions and also for specific polygons determined in Mexico City. And what often happens there is the way that areas are prioritized sometimes lose sight of these ecological references, let's say. And we keep maintaining in this kind of instruments what has been done through time. Of course, we need instruments that can facilitate us to operationalize and to be more specific into which actions are we going to implement according those cases. But I mean, this is a global course. So getting to that level of detail, I would say it's too much. But as Nazmul mentioned, and Karen as well, we have case studies. And case studies are covering different topics according to different world regions, but there perhaps serves as inspiration for other similar situations or cases that could present in the classroom, for example, or to explain certain circumstances when we have competing land uses. Yeah, I don't know if I answered Carlo Magno's question, but happy to discuss further if needed. Thank you.
No, you have given a perfectly comprehensive answer, and thank you for that. And we have a question from Samuel, and he wants to know, from the policy angle, having a framework is important, but implementation is key. What are the strategies put in place to institutionalize this to proper classroom engagement and by then extension to the society at large? So they want to know the strategies of engagement if the materials does cover them. This is from Sean Samuel.
Okay, well, I think there are two parts to that question, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
The first part of that is, how do we implement, right? So let me start with that one, and then you can remind me of the second question if I forget. So how to go from proposing to implementation. Now, land restoration, I mean, I feel that with implementation, we have either, I'll simplify, carrots or sticks. And in our course, we try to cover both, depending on your country's context. Your country might be stronger at carrots or sticks. In the United States, they tend to prefer carrots through incentives. It can also be for companies to invest in land restoration. It could also be the consumer preferences. Consumers vote with their wallets, right? Consumers may say, well, we prefer to buy a product that is more sustainable and that invests in land restoration. So we'll see some companies that do this kind of thing if they want to have a green image. Some people might call that greenwashing. Others might call it being sustainable. So you can implement by consumers pressing on the private sector to do so. So that is an example of carrots. Or you could get a tax break, for example, if you, as a farmer, for example, decide to plant trees or do some more sustainable activities. A stick might be a regulation. So in the EU, for example, we have a law that was passed last year called the EU Restoration Law. And the EU Restoration Law, I think, stipulates that 10% of all degraded land must be restored by a certain date. If I'm not mistaken, I think it's already 2030. Fact check me on those numbers. So there's an example of a stick. So this is how we can go from an idea to enforcement. Now, this does require good governance. We talk a lot about governance in both of our courses. Now, remind me of the second part of the...
Yeah, so the second part, we are focusing on how the strategies that, put in place to invoke classroom engagement and how the course covers that.
Okay. So for classroom engagement, we have throughout the course really are promoting both courses engagement through student questions, student exercises. We have a whole section in our manual about doing engaging interactive coursework. We have put a lot of PowerPoints out there, but we actually prefer the professors don't use too many of the PowerPoints, but actually try to engage as much as possible with the students with student questions, student exercises. And this is something that we really do promote across the course. So I don't know if Alejandro or Nazma want to come in on that. If you want to add anything to that one.
No, I think you made sufficient response.
Okay. If I may, Arti, I've seen a lot of questions in the chat about how to access the course. So let me just answer all of those since I
Yes,
see a lot of
please.
questions on that. Again, you can download the course freely. It's open source. And if you are a university professor or college professor, or even teaching at the high school level, you can use our materials. You can take one slide of all of our materials, or you can use the entire course. It's set up in a modular way that you can also incorporate certain modules that you find most interesting into your teachings. You can adapt the materials if you are a nonprofit, for example, and you want to teach your fellow members of your nonprofit. And so, we're the United Nations, and we believe that course materials, high quality course materials, should be available to anybody around the world. If you don't find a case study exactly from your country, well, look around you and develop your own case study. So I saw a lot of questions on that. So please, again, feel free to download the course materials as you see fit. Designed for teachers only or others. I think I addressed that. So I think also there are some questions about translation of the course into French. And actually having this webinar translated into French. So I responded to that person that we cannot do simultaneous translation for each of our webinars, but we are attempting to translate the course materials again into Spanish, French, for sure. We're working on that. It takes a bit of time. Probably Russian will come for both of our courses. And for the agriculture course, it's already been translated into Arabic. Back to you, Arti.
Thank you. And one of the questions also asks about certifications on finishing the coursework. It's a course material available online, so I think Karen can answer how that works.
Okay, so if you just download the course materials, you do what you want with them. There's no certificate. Okay, now for the MOOC, this open online course, which will come next year, there will be multiple levels of certificates because we only deliver certificates when you have accomplished something, right? So when next year, when we have our massive open online course, you will learn, you will take small quizzes. That's why we keep check on if you have acquired knowledge. And when you have successfully been through the course, we feel that you should be awarded a certificate in recognizing your efforts. So for next year's open online course, you will receive certificate if you succeed in going through the different chapters of our MOOC. Back to you, Arti, for any other questions.
Yes, and I think we have a question from Alejandra's presentation. So this question is particularly about the SULR limitation. So for developing countries, so Alejandra, this is for you. For developing countries, we have varying socioeconomic challenges, and what are the master plans that can mitigate these challenges, and how do we push ahead when land restoration is globally urgent, but citizens are making it worse just to survive?
Thank you.
This is from Sean Samuel. So yeah.
Yes, happy to answer. Well, I think there are no prescriptive solutions here. What we are also trying to say is that there is no one and only solution. There are many solutions and different pathways for achieving land restoration and city resilience. So I would say the limitations is precisely that, and understanding that for developing a master plan, and as this person is commenting, defining the challenges in certain context might be a challenge itself, because sometimes we focus on only fixing certain situations and we narrow our sight and we overlook the linkages that might have with other very complex problems. Let's say on safety, there could be very, very complex issues in the Global South. For example, the city where I'm from, Mexico City, a lot of things happening. And also, we're including some materials to help prioritize this, because how do you prioritize, and how do you give more relevance to one issue or the other? No? And also, it's like we are trying to incentivize this system thinking perspective that sometimes is very difficult to implement, because sometimes people think that for that you need to build a large model, and that you need a lot of data, and that you need to input a lot of information about the city, and you need to comprehend everything. Well, that's not possible. And systems thinking is also not only about having a modeled perspective. That's complex, and we're being too ambitious if we think that we can achieve that. So it's more of awareness. And as also this comment is mentioning, sometimes we have maladaptations in terms, when we're talking about climate mitigation or resilience, that happens for other reasons. For example, in some areas, they get flooded. The sewage infrastructure is not enough, and we have a lot of limitations. And what happens? People start cutting trees because the falling leaves from the trees are clogging the sewers. So when you get to these kinds of locations and people explain to you that they're having a real problem with their sewage system and that it's being clogged by the trees, and they make this relationship, then you have to tackle this. But then you need like a larger effort. You need awareness campaigns, educational, environmental education, and information, so that people can also change this mindset. Because from the other perspective, from the perhaps the policymaker or city maker perspective, you need to understand that things happen for a reason, and people make decisions because of a reason, and we have underlying causes, and we need to understand those. So I think that'd be my answer. Thank you.
Thank you, Alejandra. And I see a lot of questions about the next webinar and everything. Our next webinar is scheduled for 17th November, and I will drop the link to the webinars also in the chat box. And for information on the materials and everything, please do check the chat box. We have shared links to everything, the coursework, the materials, and where to find our newsletters and the work we do. So all of the information is in the chat box. Please do check the link for them. And we will please do sign up for the newsletter. You will definitely hear more about our webinars there. And yeah, so going back to the questions, we are short on time, so we will not address all of your questions. We will try our best. And one of the recent questions is about from Greece. So thank you for the presentations. Yes. And considering that school institutions curriculum or most cases are mostly case defined, do you have plans to advance the course for land stewards outside learning institutions? Anyone can take this.
I should probably take that question. Again, so I would think our massive open online course next year will be more practitioner oriented. And so definitely it will reach audiences, will be targeted to audiences beyond educators. But I also see, if you don't mind, Arti, I can just quickly take a few other questions.
Yes, please.
From Wale Elaya, I think that the question just, how can we balance ecological systems and social systems? And I think, again, the framework that Alejandra presented is a perfect example of that both need to be taken into account, and it is possible to balance both by having ecological systems that protect us, right, by having shady trees. And these are areas where we can gather as families. And shady trees are also good for, I would say, even for economic purposes and for development. Because we need shady trees, and we need green urban areas. Otherwise, we become sick, we get overheated, And we see that more people prefer to live in cities and are happier in cities where both are balanced. The next question quickly from Margaret, for land users in rural Africa, the course structured to capture the reality in Nigeria for farming activities? Yes, we do have quite a few good examples from rural Africa where we look at how to manage trade-offs between intense farming and having more sustainable farming and agroforestry. We have several documentary films, by the way, that talk about maybe not just from Nigeria, but from other parts in Africa on how to do more sustainable farming. So I thought I'd capture a few of those questions there, Arti, while I was at it. So back over to you.
Yes, and this question is to Dr. Hook. This is about how do you intend to use remote sensing as a tool to restore land?
Yes, I saw that question. Well, in our both courses, we have introduced the technologies, tools and technologies, such as remote sensing and GIS, but we have never demonstrated very in depth or in detail how a software could be used or so, because that's beyond the scope of the course. However, what we have demonstrated there, how or in what way remote sensing, or let's say remote sensing products like an image taken from the sky, could be used not only to identify to what extent of land are being degraded, but also to monitor to what extent of land being restored. So this is just a very plain, simple example how remote sensing could be used. It's not only for understanding the extent of the degradation, but also the impact of restoration. So there are so many softwares, there are so many tools out there how to better interpret remote sensing or geospatial technologies. And one of the things that we have provided in our course is enabling access to all the different links through our courses. So if someone is interested about learning more about remote sensing and how it could be better used in land restoration and degradation, they can simply follow the links and do their registration and take up further courses. And that could also be just taking the opportunities of the time someone asked from Cameroon how plastic pollution, because this is one of the major things in urban context, could be challenged in order to make restoration successful. Again, I will not going to say in what way a systematic planning should be done, but I could say yes, you can use remote sensing just to see what areas are being highly degraded by plastic pollution, and you can then take targeted efforts to reduce plastic pollution on that particular site. This is just an example. Of course, removing plastic pollution needs holistic planning, but again, we can use different tools for local treatment.
Thank you, Dr. Hook. I think with this, we will wrap up today's session. I hope you answered most of the questions, participants, and sorry if some of your queries went unanswered. We did try our best to cover everything, but on the crunch of time, we will wrap up. Thank you, all three of you. It was really great to have you all here, and it was a lovely and very informative session. And again, to the participants, the course materials are all in the chat box and the link. And if not, please do visit our G20 website. I think all of this information is on our website. So yes, thank you. And thank you, speakers.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. All the best. Thanks for all the interesting questions also. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you, guys.